Tyler. Max? Max who? Who was Max? I don't know a Max. Why was that name in my head? The weird guy who'd been kissing me was staring at me like he was trying to guess what I was thinking. What's his problem? Who are you? I asked him. It was so strange. His face seemed somewhat familiar, but I couldn't place it, like I'd seen it in an old dream or something. Probably a nightmare. Do I know you? I added, because he didn't answer me. He was still staring at me with his mouth slightly open like a goldfish. Yes, you know me, he sighed, turning away from me for the first time and going over to some panel where he tapped away at the buttons. I frowned, curious. Then who are you? I asked, impatient. I'm not a very patient guy. My name is Kayasora Maxtesiosa. I'm your boyfriend, he said without even looking at me. My jaw dropped and my eyes bulged wide. What was with this loser? What a cruel joke. Has the world gone loopy or something? My, my, I sputtered, trying to find words. No way. I'm not gay. And I'm going out with Vienna. The guy looked at me and raised his eyebrows, smirking. What's his name again? I forget. Kaya's blah blah blah. I don't know. I don't care. Whatever, I said and walked past him out of the room into the next. This room was slightly larger, with a few different things. There was an open door to the outside, and on either side were brackets with parachute bags. Why would there be parachutes like that in a house? I shook my head and walked outside to take a look around, and then my jaw hit the floor. Or should I say, sand. I was looking at the Australian outback, the middle of nowhere. There was red sand as far as the eye could see, or at least as far as I could see before the landscape disappeared into darkness of the night. A few white gum trees spotted the area, but that was about it. No roads, no houses, no signs of life anywhere. For all I knew, I could be the last human alive. Well, and Caius. Someone appeared behind me, though I knew who it was, and I heard him laugh. Did you kidnap me? I gasped, my back still to him. He chuckled again, standing in the doorway to the strange building. I stepped further out and had a good look around. The building Caius was still standing in was silver and kind of pear-shaped, literally. The bigger end was buried in the red sand, and it kind of looked a little lopsided. But there was one door and no windows. Then it hit me. It wasn't a house. It was a spaceship. Wow, I gasped. A real-life spaceship, here, right before my eyes. When did I get so lucky? I was so amazed by this, so struck by it, and there Caius stood, looking kind of bored. I'm not taking you back until you remember everything, he said, and then disappeared inside. It was a dark night, and icy cold out here, too. Not uncommon in the outback. Blazing hot in the day, ice cold at night. A shudder ran through me. I was only wearing a shirt and shorts. I could hear crickets in the distance, and above me in the night sky were so many stars I couldn't even have counted them if I tried. Are you gonna stay out there all night? Caius laughed from the spaceship open door hatch. I turned and looked at him, squinting as the light from inside poured out here into the dark. His dark silhouette stood in there, hands in his pockets, smirking at me. Goosebumps prickled my arms from the cool breeze. The air was dry out here, which made it colder. Caius opened his arms out, tempting me for a hug. I shuddered, but not from his offer, from the breeze. Why didn't I care that he was trying to hug me? Probably just because I hugged Marco all the time. Come on. I gaped through the dark at Caius, hearing his voice in my head. What? What? How is that even possible? Wait, spaceship? Strange guy? Was Caius an alien? Have I been abducted? Was I probed? Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Just come here, he laughed, shaking his arms impatiently. Was he still in my mind? My brain wasn't a safe place anymore. My brain wasn't a safe place anymore. A dingo cried to the moon not far off in the distance, making me jump. I freaked, remembering the stories of dingo packs hunting lonely hikers. I sprinted straight for the open door hatch and burst through it, crashing into Caius and knocking us both down. Caius hit the floor and I landed on top of him, looking down into his face. "Is it gone?" I asked, looking over my shoulder out the door. All I could see was black now, and I was worried I was going to see two eyes reflecting back. Caius wrapped his arm around me and hugged me. "It's gone," he said. I leant against him. He was warm and comfy. Wait, no, this is wrong. I leapt to my feet and raced away from him into another room. I found myself in a cockpit, or the spaceship's equivalent of one. The controls were cool, like nothing I'd seen before. There was no way I would have been able to fly this thing, even if I wanted to. There were flashing lights, but everything was written in a strange language I didn't recognize, with weird characters. "Hungry?" the possible alien asked me, still in the other room. I wondered why it wasn't a huge deal for me that he was potentially an alien. I mean, I'd been waiting all my life to meet a real-life alien, and here I was contemplating running for it in the outback and risking my chances with the dingoes. Maybe that was because I didn't know if this guy was dangerous or not. Was he a good guy or a bad guy, despite the fact that he could be an extraterrestrial from some far-off planet? "What planet are you from?" I asked, coming back into the room where Caius was. He was bending over something built into one of the walls, and I got a good view of his butt in tight jeans. "Whoa. Hold up. I was just checking out a guy's ass. Holy balloon head." A balloon with holes is not very effective. "I can't say," the guy said casually. "He is an alien. If he was a human, he would have said something like, 'Earth, duh,' or, 'Is that a trick question?' But no, he said he couldn't say. That meant—" "Wait," Caius frowned, standing up and turning to look at me. "How did you know I was from another planet?" Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now. Was he going to attack and eat me because I figured out his secret? I guess this being a spaceship and all," I explained, trying to sound normal. Caius' face dropped, and he turned back to what he was doing. What? Was he actually disappointed? No excuse to eat me today? Yet. "Chicken and pineapple on barbecue sauce," he announced, standing back up with a pizza. My mouth dropped open, and I began to drool as the smell hit me. "Your favorite," he added, taking the huge pizza over to a weird table and chairs sticking out of the side. "Oh, my God." "How did you know it was my favorite?" I asked, following the smell and sitting down across from the alien. He smirked. "I'm your boyfriend. We eat food together sometimes," he said like it was an obvious thing, and grabbed a slice, biting the crust first, the way I ate it. "How do I know you didn't just invade my mind and steal those details?" I asked defensively, grabbing a slice myself. It smelt so good, and I was so hungry that right now I didn't care if it was poisoned. I needed food. Oh, so delicious. "So," I said with a mouthful, "how did we meet?" I felt smug with my trivia. Caius grinned, leaning closer toward me over the top of the table. I felt something swirl in my stomach, like I was going to be sick. "It was a stormy day," he began, poetic-like, and I rolled my eyes. "Seriously?" But he continued. "I'd crash-landed just outside of town and was making my way to civilization so I could find some help because I was seriously injured and going to die. At that time, my ship's power was down, so I couldn't do it myself." I nodded along to the story, not really believing it. "The first place I came along was the high school, but it was too late, and I passed out on the oval in the pouring rain." Caius told his story, his eyes glazed over when he paused. I guess he thought it was something great. "You came out in the middle of a storm, risking your life with the lightning so close, and came out to save me." My jaw dropped. I did that? I actually did something like that? But I'm not that kind of person at all. I never do anything brave like that. I'm a weak-ass geek. I scrunched my nose up at him. "That's it. I've decided. This guy is definitely lying." I rose and stalked back to the hatch door, which was now closed. Placing my hands on my hips, I looked it over. There were no handles, no levers or buttons or fingerprint pads, no scanners or lasers. It was like it wasn't even a door at all. I had no way of opening it. Caius has trapped me in here forever. "I told you, I'm not letting you go until you remember everything." The weird alien named Caius Blobby Blah Blah chuckled. I frowned at the door. "I will not be a prisoner on an alien spaceship." There weren't even any windows, so I had no idea if we were still in the Australian outback, or even on Earth at all. How did I know he was even telling the truth about the ship crash landing? It could have just been a cover story. I was so far into my head and my own thoughts that I didn't even notice Caius had gotten up and come over to me. It wasn't until he wrapped his arms around my waist and rested his head on my shoulder that I'd even noticed he'd moved. I tried to shove him away, kick him, pry his arms off me, but nothing worked. He was too strong. That's so not fair. Get off me! I growled, lashing out. Shh, Caius said seriously, quiet, and I knew he had his eyes closed. Just let me enjoy this feeling for a second. I don't know why, but his words, when he spoke like that, had some sort of effect over me. I stopped resisting and just stood there, letting him hold me. I wasn't grossed out by it, even though he was a guy. Just like when I was lying on top of him on the floor. He was warm, comfy, and inviting. And he just felt so... I couldn't find a word to describe it, but feeling him hold me like this, whether I believed his story and trusted him or not, I knew when he said he liked me, he meant it. Why? I asked, without any specifics, so that I could leave it open to interpretation, and Caius could answer it however he pleased. He sniffled, and I felt a hot tear land on my neck. He was crying? I thought I'd lost you back there. I thought there was no way I was going to be able to bring you back. It scared me. The thought of never seeing you again? That's why it's okay if you don't remember me now. Or if you don't ever. As long as you're alive. He sniffed again, then stood up straight and let me go, going back to the pizza table and sitting back down. He rested his elbows on the table and put his head in his hands, but made no sound. I watched him like that for quite a while, neither of us moving, and wondered what he was thinking. He was really good looking in an unusual kind of way. Tall, well-built, with blue eyes and brown hair. I was convinced I wasn't gay, despite the fact that my girlfriend has been trying to change that for a long time now. But I couldn't deny the fact that I was actually quite attracted to this guy after all. An image flashed before my eyes, and I blinked, unable to work out what had been. It has vanished as quickly as it had appeared. What was it? Something? An image of something? Like a dream or a memory? No, it was more like a feeling on my lips. I walked over to Caius, and instead of sitting opposite him, I stood before him and placed my hand on his shoulder. He flinched and lifted his head, looking up into my eyes and frowning. Well, here goes nothing, I thought, and bent down, pressing my lips to his. I held them there and waited, and waited, and waited. Caius kissed me back, and I felt the hope coming from him, but when I pulled back, we both sighed. He knew that I felt nothing. Wait. No, that wasn't true. There was a tingling feeling rising inside me, like a surge of something coursing through my veins. It felt ticklish, ecstatic. Caius' eyes recognized something change in my face, and he rose, grabbing onto my chin. He stepped forward and pressed his lips to mine once again, and with this new feeling rising stronger inside me, when his lips touched mine, something exploded within. I grabbed onto him desperately and kissed him back. Tyler, you remember? He cried, grabbing me and staring into my eyes. No, I said, shaking my head. But don't stop. And I kissed him again. Marco. I kissed Neil back, cherishing the feeling of his lips on mine. His hand was on my chest, and it slowly ran down the length of my body to my hip, gripping it tightly as he rose up over me further, pinning me down onto the mattress with his body. I moaned, letting my mouth drop open, and he deepened the kiss, moving his tongue into my mouth. But the fun had to end there, because Tyler would be back at any moment. Neil seemed to realize, too, and he pulled away, looking down at me and licking his lips. He shook his head and laughed, climbing off me and standing up. I stood up, too. What's so funny? I asked, feeling a little offended. Nothing, he chuckled, and walked out of the room. I followed after him, still confused. No, tell me, I demanded, a little angry and hurt now. What, was it funny to kiss me or something? Was I a bad kisser? Did I do something wrong? It's just that you're my nephew's best friend, and you're underage. He shrugged, going into the kitchen and placing his bottle of beer in the sink. I could get fired for that, he added with a sigh, running a hand back through his hair and turning to me. I frowned. He was right, but there was something about doing something wrong that was oh so much more appealing. I stood there before him, placing my hand in my pockets, and shrugged. Maybe I could seduce him. I bit my lip and looked away from him, aware his eyes were now on me. I ran my hand through my hair and ruffled it a bit, straining the muscles in my neck a little so that they stood out. Neil wasn't moving. He was just watching me, so I knew it was working at least a little. I ran my hand from the back of my head, down my neck, and then down my chest, where I stopped and pretended to scratch my stomach a little, making my shirt lift up to my navel. Out of the corner of my eyes, I saw Neil's eyes drop to my exposed skin, but before he could get a good look, I let my shirt go, and it dropped back down. He said, obviously trying to change the situation, but he blanked as I licked the corner of my mouth and let my lips stay slightly parted, turning to look at him innocently and waiting for him to finish. He blinked at me, a blank expression on his face. Then he stormed towards me, grabbed my shoulders and shoved me up against the wall. He crashed his lips to mine and kissed me hot and heavy in the way I'd only dreamt about before. His tongue fought for dominance in my mouth, and I gave it to him. "You're a horrible human being," he chuckled against my mouth, smirking. I grinned back. "I know, but you like it," I teased, grabbing onto the front of his shirt and pulling him harder against me. He rolled his eyes, but didn't push off me this time. Instead, his hand slid down my side, going past my hip this time, and he cupped my butt. Bringing my hips firmly against his, I groaned, loving the feeling. If V found out about this, she'd go mental, but I wasn't going to tell, not even Tyler. I wanted Neil all to myself. Marco. I was laying on the couch in Neil's apartment, staring at the TV across from me that was running old cartoons. Neil was sitting at one end, so I was laying with my head on his lap. He was stroking my face, brushing my hair back out of my eyes, but the curls made it bounce back. There was tension between us, and it was obvious why. Neither of us were single, and we'd just made out with each other twice. So I felt bad, even though my girlfriend is a bitch, and I'm pretty sure she cheats on me every chance she gets with nearly every guy in school. I didn't know if it was the same for Neil, though, but neither of us said anything. Tyler would be back any minute, and I was ready to jump up the moment the door opened, but for now, I was enjoying just being here alone with this godly man. He should be back by now, Neil wondered aloud, mostly to himself, as he glanced up at the clock on the wall in the kitchen. I looked at it too, just to check the time. It was 12:30 a.m. Luckily, I'd called my mom and told her I was sleeping over here tonight, because Neil said I could. But it was concerning that Tyler was still out. He wouldn't stay out this late without letting someone know where he was. He wasn't like this. Should we give him a call? I offered, arching my back and holding myself up with my arms. Neil looked at me and placed a hand in my hair just behind my ear, ruffling it a bit. "Yeah, if he's not back in 10 minutes, I'll call," he said, still watching me. I was feeling pretty frisky tonight, like a new Marco who took risks and chances. So I leaned forward and pecked Neil on the lips before settling back down in his lap. I kind of felt like a dog at the moment, but I didn't mind. Max. He was kissing me, and it didn't matter if he didn't remember who I was. I kissed him back, holding him closer. I wanted so badly for Tyler to remember me that I didn't think of the fact that if he didn't, I could always make him fall in love with me all over again. Tyler pulled back and looked into my eyes, frowning. "Why did I do that?" he asked himself, but out loud. Why did humans do that? It was so weird. Because deep down, you know we're dating. You just don't remember it, I suggested. Tyler smirked. "As if." He laughed and shoved me away, going back to the pizza. I reached out and grabbed his wrist, making him stop. He looked over his shoulder at me and frowned. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to force him to remember me. Maybe if I just told him about the things we'd done together, maybe he'd remember. "Caius?" he said, and I blinked at him. Caius? Who? "Oh, right. I told him my full name." I shook my head and laughed. "What's that? Some nickname?" I chuckled. "You call me Max." Tyler's eyes went wide, and I froze. "Do you remember? Did the name click?" "You're Max?" he asked me, turning to face me properly. I assessed his mind then to see what he was thinking. This guy is Max? But who's Max? Why is that name so clear in my mind? I don't even know this guy. I don't understand any of this. My heart sank and my hand fell from his to my side. Right, I said, and then turned. I went to the hatch door and opened it, then stalked out into the darkness. I needed some fresh air to clear my mind. Thunder rumbled in the sky above me and lightning flashed across it, lighting up the night. From a clear night sky to this? It wasn't uncommon. My body affected the electricity in the air here on Earth. I found a rock and sat down on it, resting my elbows on my knees and my head in my hands. It was okay. It was. Tyler was alive. He was safe with me. He was okay. He'd regain his memory soon, and then everything would go back to normal, obviously. But I couldn't pretend the fact that he didn't even know who I was hurt like a punch in the gut, because it did. Marco. I looked up at the clock. Neil was in the kitchen on his mobile phone, pacing back and forth, waiting for Tyler to pick up. This was his fourth attempt. Still, no answer. I was starting to get a sinking feeling in my stomach, and Neil looked extremely depressed. Damn it, he growled, hanging up and tossing his phone onto the bench. I watched him go to the fridge door, yank it open, stare inside for a few minutes, then close it without taking anything out, and storm out of the kitchen and down the hallway. I leapt up off the couch and went to the front door, opening it and looking out, but there was no sign. I knew there probably wouldn't have been, but I needed something to do, and I hated feeling useless. Should we call the police? I asked Neil over my shoulder. He grunted from the next room, and I took that as a maybe. I pulled out my phone and decided to call V. After that, I'd try Gunner. Then I'd find a way to get in contact with Max. I wondered who would have his number. Tyler. Max, turned and left, leaving the hatch door open. I ran to the doorframe and looked out, watching him disappear into the dark. Max! I shouted after him, but he didn't reply and he didn't return. Why did that make me sad? I didn't want him to go. I just wanted him to stay here and kiss me. I waited 10 minutes watching the lightning and thunder roll around in the sky before I got bored and moved away from the door. I left it open just in case Max came back any second, but I wandered into the first room I'd seen, the room I'd woken up in. Now that I looked at it properly, it was clearly a sick bay. There were all kinds of advanced medical equipment laying around, and charts too. I walked up to the big screen I'd seen the heart on and tapped an arrow pointing to the left. The blank screen flashed to the one of the heart again. It was repeating what I'd seen, and the bits I'd missed. First, the heart looked empty, plain, then it flooded with purple liquid. It pulsed a few times, but didn't start up. Then it suddenly jumped to life and vanished. The video ended there. I pressed the back button again. This time it was a body covered in a whole lot of red. Slowly the red changed to orange, then green. The body was fixed. Did this all happen? Tyler, you died. I brought you back. Max said that to me when I'd woken up. This body on the screen wasn't me, was it? I stared at the monitor, wondering what on earth this all meant. Or not on Earth, because I was in a spaceship. I heard a rattling in the room behind me and whirled around, hoping it was Max finally coming back. "Hi," I said as I entered the next room, but that's all I got to before my jaw dropped and I froze dead in my tracks. "Surprise," a strange black lizard thing said, standing in the hatch doorway. It was gruesome, like nothing I'd seen before. Huge lizard eyes and slimy black flesh. It took up the entire doorframe, and even then it had to crouch. I stumbled backwards in shock, tripping over my own feet and crashing into the wall behind me. The thing! It came towards me, licking its huge teeth with its bizarre yellow tongue. If it could smile, then it would be right now, and it was smiling at me. "Max?" I asked, hoping, but deep down I knew it wasn't Max. Max was a good alien. He cared about me. He wouldn't scare me like this. Plus, he was a good kisser, and this guy looked like he wasn't. Not at all. "Guess again," the alien slithered in its grotesque accent. A shudder ran through me and goosebumps ran up my arms. I needed to find a weapon. "Max, get back soon." I saw something long and pointy sticking out from behind something. I dove for it, grabbing the end with both hands and yanking it out of the wall. Without hesitating, I swung it and caught the alien in the side of the head, forcing him to stumble back to the side. I didn't wait and lunged the pointy end right into his chest, deep through the skin. The thing shuddered, then melted right there on the spot. I screwed my face up in disgust and backed away from it, but I didn't let go of the weapon in case there were others. I was right. Max. I stood up suddenly, feeling something shift in the air. Something felt off. Something wasn't right. The scene felt different. I turned towards the spaceship, seeing a faint light in the distance. Tyler was there, but for some reason it didn't feel like he was safe anymore. Running there like this wouldn't be fast enough. I pressed the stud in my ear and shifted, then raced towards the light in the darkness. But when I reached the ship, there was no sign of anything, not even Tyler. "Tyler!" I shouted out in panic, rushing into the craft, running through all the rooms, looking. There was nothing, but there was a pile of black sludge on the floor in the main room. The Martians have been here. I was only gone a second. Wouldn't I have seen their ship flying around or something? How did this happen? I ran out of the spaceship and looked around. I could hardly see anything, not even with my alien night vision. No. It felt like I was losing Tyler all over again. I couldn't handle it a second time. No, not this. Please, not this. "Max?" I heard a faint whisper in the distance. My head flicked in the direction of the sound, and I saw two eyes looking back at me through the dark from about 100 yards away. I ran to him, reaching him and pulling him into a tight hug. "Are you hurt?" I asked, and sighed with relief when he shook his head no into my shoulder. I realized I was standing in something and looked down. Dead Martian. "What happened?" I asked him, looking into his gorgeous eyes. "I killed them," Tyler said simply, still a little in shock. "Max, I killed 2 aliens. I could do something courageous. Maybe what you said about me was true after all." I smiled, and slowly he would soon remember. "I'll take you home," I told him and lifted him over my shoulder. It's funny, he didn't seem at all surprised by the fact that I was still in Juperian form, not human. Neil. I was sitting on the couch, head in hands, legs twitching from panic. My phone was pressed cold against my forehead, thinking that now was a good time to call the cops. It was 1:30 a.m. The front door opened and my head snapped up. Tyler walked in casually, like nothing happened, a smile on his face. "Where the hell have you been?" I screamed at him, leaping off the couch and lunging at him. I grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him half to death. "Sorry, I got sidetracked," was all he said. Simple as that. Marco stumbled in from the other room, saw Tyler, and screamed. "Dude!" he said, throwing his body at us. "Are you staying over?" Tyler asked him, ignoring me. "Absolutely," Marco replied, and they rushed off to Tyler's bedroom like it was no big deal. I slammed the front door shut and clutched my chest, sliding down to the floor. Cold sweat dripped from my brow, and I licked a drop up with my tongue on the side of my mouth. If he thought he was going to go unpunished for this, he was dead wrong.